So I want to tell the story so far of Purse of Riches. And while that story isn't completed yet, I still think it's worth telling. So I want to talk about what's happened, what's going on now, what's next, and then kind of share my own thoughts on this fish that has, perhaps unfortunately, dominated the 7.4 big fish discovery period. So on December 16th, we got patch 7.4, which, as expected, added new big fish, and there's a bunch of fun ones in there. But one fish it added was a big fish called Purse of Riches, caught in High Tide Harbor in Tuliolol. Now, historically speaking, what we refer to as city fish, so fish that are usually caught in cities like watcher catfish, bloody brewer, octo mammoth, what's the other, like a variety of ones, any ones that you can catch in a sanctuary city, historically aren't the most standout fish. Like there's nothing hugely discerning or unique about them outside of the fact that they're caught in a city. If you look at fish like earful, which was caught in Rods Han, I think like the last maybe interesting city fish we got was in Ragar Zurich with Bloodtail Zombie and Watcher Catfish. Like those are kind of interesting fish, but that's about it. They usually don't stand out, is the point. They usually don't have anything super unique about them. They have relatively common windows. They aren't necessarily super difficult or rare. They just kind of exist and they fill the fishing hole, and we're fine with that. The fish in Tuliolol, Ukavolo's barter and cabin keep permit, followed that same trend. Ukavolo's barter was maybe a little slippery. Cabin keep permit was pretty much what I was expecting for a city fish. And then Purse of Riches came along. And we were kind of expecting it to be a relatively quick find, as we would expect for a city fish. And it ended up taking 25 days until the first catch. For comparison, the until then, the longest discovery for any fish in the modern era, so we're thinking like post Shadowbringers, is 21 days. That was Moonlight Guppy, and part of the reason for that was a lot of people were focusing on super rare windows, and we just weren't testing some of the more common transitions well enough. The actual longest time it took to find a fish was Bobgoblin Bass back in Heaven's Ward. That took 45 days, but the discovery at the time was not as centralized. It wasn't as organized as it is now. And so that's partially why it took a little bit longer. But Purse took 25 days, making it the longest of modern fishing and the second longest in all-time history to find a single fish. And it was found in clouds into rain between 16 and 1800 hours, or 4 p.m. and 6 p.m. in Tuliolol in High Tide Harbor. This is notable because Purse of Riches, being a city fish, wasn't expected to have a very rare window, and clouds into rain is a rare window. It is, and I'll talk about this in a second, it is the rarest weather conditions for Tuliolol next to each other in a time slot. And so when it was found, we were like, oh, that's weird. That's kind of strange. But, there's a whole other variety of possibilities for where this fish could be. And through extensive testing over those 25 days, this is probably the most extensive testing, according to Teodo Teyun, who manages all our discovery periods. Purse of Riches is like the most tested fish. The entire spreadsheet of possible weather conditions is almost 100% grayed out, which is meaning, statistical confidence in saying the fish isn't here. And so when we finally started getting into expansion testing, expanding the window, could it be clouds to clouds into rain, or it could be rain into rain on top of the clouds into rain? Like, we were like, okay, well, what are these potential windows that it could be? And we focused on those, and we found that after testing them all, and the latest one was on January 27th, it wasn't there. It was not in any of these expanded windows, which would have drastically made it less rare. And basically, we were just left with that one initial condition of clouds to rain, 16 to 1800 hours. And this is weird. I want to underline, this is a first. We have never had a fish in any combination, in any expansion, have a 5% chance weather into a 5% chance weather. And for those of you who are confused by what I'm saying here, weather in Final Fantasy XIV is not pure random. It's not equally random. It's not like rain and fair skies have an equal chance. It's weighted. So for Tuliolol, it could have a 40% chance of being fair skies, but only a 5% chance of being rain. In this particular case, clouds and rain both are 5% chances of being drawn. And there's a Caf Kaleo did a video on weather that I always recommend that I would go and look at. And if I remember correctly, I'll link it in the description below. But basically, this has never happened because we've never had two of the rare weather transitions working together. Typically, we've seen like a 10% and a 5% into a 5%, or like a 5 into a 10, or like a 5 into a 40. There's a couple of weird fish too where it's like the low chance weather into everything else except the low chance weather. But we've never seen a 5 into 5. And for those who are keeping the math at home, that's a 0.25% chance of that weather combination happening at any one time. Now, that alone probably wouldn't have been as terrible, but there's now the time component. So Purse of Riches is also only available during 16 to 18 in the evening. So that's 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. in the evening in Tuliolol during rain after clouds. That basically now reduces that chance, that percent chance of that weather combination down to, divide that by 3. So that's what? 0.0825 or something like that percent chance. If you want to round, 0.08. If you want to round up, 0.1% chance of this weather condition with the time at that specific time happening at every 23 minutes when the weather changes. That's what the percent chance is going to be, which makes it very, very rare. And to put this into comparison, and I'm sorry I'm struggling on this. I wrote notes for all of this, so I made sure I got everything, at least as accurate as I could be. And it's still very weird to talk about because I'm trying to I'll get to it in a bit. But anyways, to compare Purse of Riches downtime to other notable fish that have long downtime. So like when you think of downtime fish, you probably think of Bob Goblin Bass. You probably think of Cinder Surprise or Ruby Dragon or Aelid Scon. Cinder, Bob, Scon, their average time between windows does not surpass, or roughly does not surpass, 5 days, 5 real days on average. So if you extrapolate out all the possible windows over the next, 100 years and average the time between those windows, it roughly ends up being, 4 or 5 days at most for some of these fish. I think for Scon it's a little bit lower. For Cinder it's slightly higher, but it ends up being around 5 days, and I want you to remember that number. Heirloom Gold Grouper, which was another new fish added in patch 7.4, is slightly higher, sitting around 6 or 7 days. And Purse of Riches, in its current, believed to be correct, conditions, sets it at a average downtime between windows of 19 days. Actually, I think it's a little bit closer to 19 and a half, but 19 days. This has so far been very, very unheard of. We've joked about having this before. I know I specifically made the joke. I'm pretty sure I even made it publicly about there being in Garlemald in Endwalker a 131-day downtime combination, which I think was like Thunder into Thunder or something like that. I think it was like Thunder into Thunder into the 1600 weather window. So whoops. But like I made this, we've joked about this. I've joked about having this because we never expected it to happen. We never expected that they would just be like, yeah, let's just add a 5 to 5. If this current window stands, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that as well. If the current window stands as it does now, Purse of Riches will have multiple 20 plus day downtimes, 20 real world plus day downtimes just this year, including a previously unheard of and record shattering 92-day downtime. Yes, you heard that correctly. 92-day downtime between August 1st and November 1st of this year of 2026 when I'm recording this. It's currently January 30th. That is more than the downtime, like the longest downtimes of Bob Goblin Bass, like in the past, like 5 years or something. I don't know. Like the top 3 or something is all 30 pluses, and so it's almost that long. It is literally 3 months where this fish will not have any conditions in order to be caught, and that's a lot of downtime. This has been I can't underpin how gloves off this feels from Fisher Dev, which is who like the Fishgourd community kind of collectively refers to the team or person who works on fishing at Square Enix, because we don't know who it is, and the mystery is kind of part of the fun, but it feels very glove off from Fisher Dev, assuming it's correct, and I'll explain that in a second. But it's a lot of downtime, all because of this rare weather of this 5 into 5. And because of this, Purse of Riches, assuming this condition remains, becomes basically the shyest fish in the game. And I don't know if I want to dare to say rare in this case either, because early results from the windows that we have had showed that it isn't super uncommon. And it's also very possible to not get a bite at all during the windows. Like I've been to 2 windows and I haven't gotten a bite at all in either of them. So I don't want to necessarily say it's a rare fish because of just how I think about rarity and shyness and that type of thing. But if someone came up and was like, yeah, Purse of Riches is the rarest fish in the game, I probably wouldn't correct them. At least with these current windows. So right now, as of recording, we are sitting at a relatively confident window for Purse of Riches being clouds into rain between 16 to 1800 hours in Tuliolol for a fish caught in high tide harbor using ghost snippers. By the way, I never actually mentioned that the bait is ghost snippers. I was personally really hoping at least that it was going to be crimson lugworm, because those types of fish don't really eat shrimp. They eat more of like the bugs, but that's another thing. But it is ghost snippers as the bait, and so that's where we're at now. Kind of coming. There's one more test as of recording. There's one more test that is almost certainly not going to be a valid window because there's no combination of weather that it currently has that would allow it to exist in that way based off all the testing. And when I say Purse of Riches has been tested the most out of any fish, I am not lying. It is almost completely grayed out on the tracking spreadsheet of, it is not in any of these windows. And because of that, we can confidently say that, this upcoming test that's coming up, which is for, let me look, rain into fog, we're pretty confident it's not that. Because if it was, there would have to be some combination of weather that had like a pre of rain and some combination of weather that had a post of fog. And clouds into fog would have to work, and rains into fog would have to work, or a cloud into fog would have to work, or something like that. And rain into rain would have to work, but none of them do. So we're fairly confident it is clouds into rain, 1600 to 1800. So basically, we now have this fish that no one expected to ever exist, and it exists now. And what happens next? We've always joked about this fish being added to this type of fish being added to the game, and never expected it to because long downtime fish aren't kind to average players. And so due diligence is going to be done. There is a possibility that this is a bug. There are some kind of plausible theories out there that the conditions for Purse of Riches were inputted wrong on the back end. It's never really... This specific type of bug has never really happened before, but we have had issues with conditions changing, either like during the patch or after a fish has been added. For example, we have had fish conditions changed in the past, and they were called out in the patch notes. And back in Endwalker, I believe it was, Aquamaton was unable to be caught for a while because of the relic steps. They added a fish to Sea Gazer Shoals and accidentally included it as part of the intuition requirement, making it so that you could never get the Aquamaton into intuition. But there is some precedence for it being a bug. However, we've never seen a bug for a newly released big fish like this. So I could be telling you this whole story and giving you all these ideas and it not actually coming to fruition as being the real thing, but we'll find out. The bug reports, I would also note, if I wouldn't recommend just submitting a bug report if you're going to go, it's rare and this is a bug. There's a few people who have collected data, myself included, and have submitted or have already or will be submitting bug reports with the data saying we are fairly confident, we are very confident this is it. We have ruled out every other possibility. There is nothing that we feel like we are doing wrong. Is it a bug? We think it's a bug. And then wait for a GM response. We've done that in the past. I've done that in the past. I thought I found a bug with the Mamul Allied Society quest, and I documented it all, and they were like, nope, it's working as intended. So we're going to wait and see what they say with that. But that's going to take a little bit of time. So please don't submit a bug report unless you know what you're doing. And also be ready to give feedback. And you're probably already thinking right now, holy crap, this fish is ridiculous. And you're not alone in thinking that. There will at least be one thread going up somewhere on the forums about Purse of Riches. And when I see it go up, I'll link it down in the comments. Whether or not this is a bug, whether or not Purse of Riches is working as intended, I think it's still a good point to have a conversation about downtime fish. And so when you see that thread come up, I would ask if you want to and you feel comfortable sharing your thoughts on it, please do so in a respectful and constructive manner. The sidereal whale thread on the official forums in patch 6.55 was an absolute mess. It went off the rails. It was not a great representation of the Final Fantasy XIV fishing community, and I will be very personally disappointed if this Purse of Riches thread falls down the same line. Please don't do anything or say anything that, just evolves into pure fish hate or hating the developers or yelling at me. I had one person yell at me over Sidereal Whale. That was a weird thing. But please keep it constructive. Please keep it respectful to everybody else. But yeah, that's kind of really all we can do next. That's kind of what the next steps are. But now, what do I think? I guess is probably the thing that's going on, or probably going through everyone's head now. Okay, cool. That's what happened. Fruity, what do you think about all this? And I don't know. I do think it warrants that whole discussion about downtime fish in general. So speaking about downtime fish broadly, not just specifically Purse of Riches, I think downtime fish should exist because they can really add to the world, like quote unquote fantasy or like mythology of the fisher job from like a storytelling point of view. Purse kind of does that okay, but downtime fish can create, these very interesting community stories. Fisher is a very community-oriented, community-centric job. It always has been. Like, they've talked about this when they were first, relaunching the game. Fisher has always meant to be different from all the other classes because you are expected to work with other people and communities to be built up around fishing to be able to answer questions like where the fish are and doing all those different things. That was the design of the class. It is still working as we expect it to. Like, that is, like, if you're concerned, like, oh, I always have to look stuff up, that is how Fisher was designed to be. And so having fish like Bob Goblin Bass that have these long downtimes, or even Datniotes Aeroplanos, which was just added in patch 7.4 and will have a 40-something downtime next year. I think it's 48, I believe. Let me look at my notes. Having such a long downtime fish can lead to some relatively interesting stories. It creates this interesting dynamic. Also, sorry, it was 39 days, not 40. It creates this interesting like generational story thing where you have new fishers being told stories from veteran fishers about, like, oh yeah, back 2 years ago there was that stint when Sidereal Whale was only up like once in a month, and we have all these interesting and fun stories which I think really lend and support that original idea for what Square Enix wanted Fisher to be. They create these stories. They create these community events, very impromptu, very informal events. But like whenever these big fish come up, they have all these fishers coming together and people are talking, they're having fun, they're making jokes, they're lamenting together in some cases, they're helping each other out. And I think that is so unique and great about Fisher. And you can really only easily see that when you have some of these downtime fish. But from a game design point of view, I think it's kind of cool that we have a mega downtime fish, but please don't ever do it again. Like I said, I think downtime fish should exist. I think that they fill that need for a part of that storytelling fantasy of the Fisher job, that story community oriented side of the job. It helps support that. And they also help balance out some of the more intricate, thought-intensive fish. If every fish in the game was something that you had to consistently be thinking through, like Punity Pain in patch 7.4, Sethacanthus, Ruby Dragon, or I'm trying to think of what the other one was, Ambling Caltrop, Takatoa, like all these fish require active, focused thought. If every fish was that, it would get very tiring, not because it would be stale, but because it would be you would consistently have to go in and focus. It would be, imagine having to raid, every day for 20 minutes at a time, which is nonstop focus, like every day, multiple times an hour. It's that type of feeling. And we can't have that all the time. You need to have a spectrum of fish in order to keep it balanced, in order to keep people engaged, and to prevent people from getting burned out on fishing. You're probably thinking, well, I'm already kind of burned out on fishing because it's kind of boring, and that's fine. There's different ways of getting burned out, through different mechanisms. But for those who go after big fish, that would be one of the ways to kind of prevent it, is having this spectrum of fish. I think purse specifically, and I knew that I knew that I'm not specifically talking about purse, but as we currently see purse's conditions, purse does kind of throw the balance out of whack a little bit. And I think actually a lot of patch 7.4 fish do, but Teodo Teyun, who I've mentioned was the discovery lead, who is leading discovery for basically all of our patches since like 5.4 or 5.3, and I will be having a discussion on the patch 7.4 fish specifically, including Purse of Riches, in a future video. So please look forward to that. Teodo Teyun, I consider one of, if not the best and most knowledgeable fishers in the game. He is a creator of oceanfishing.boats, which is an amazing resource for ocean fishing. So I'm very excited to be able to just sit down and chat with him about fish for what could potentially be 5 hours. Knowing both of us, we could probably talk about any single fish for multiple hours. So please look forward to that video when it comes out. But going back to what I was saying, with the way downtime works in this game, no one player is going to have a chance to hit every possible window for like the downtime fish. And I think that's okay. If you follow a regular sleep schedule and go to work, I personally think going a week, maybe 2, without seeing a specific fish's window is that bad. Because as I'll say, if you're in North America and it's a bad window for you, it's going to be a great window for someone in Europe or in Japan or in Australia or somewhere else. And this is a very global community, and the system is globalized so that it might not be great for you, but it is going to be great for others as well. And so it has to be kind of fair in that sense of it's just going to be random. And sometimes you might not see a fish for a few windows, and that should be okay. But if the downtime of the fish means that you're going to be missing 1 or 2 windows, and that results in you not seeing the fish for multiple weeks, like that is a bit too much, in my opinion. Some people who work, who have regular sleep schedules, who don't get up in the middle of the night to go catch fish. I don't. With the current conditions for Purse of Riches, for example, there is a chance that if they don't catch the fish in an upcoming window that they can hit, they're not going to see it again until June, because they sleep, they work, people are busy, and I think that's a bit too much. If it was like, oh, I can't, like I missed the beginning of February's window, and then I can't hit another one until the back half of February, or maybe even end of February, I'm kind of personally okay with that, because I think if there's enough windows happening that other people are getting chances as well, other players in other regions have good chances, then that's fine. But if it's like one window every 3 weeks and you're going to by missing one, you can't catch it for like 8 weeks, that is a little bit of a problem. And I think, again, I didn't want to talk about Purse specifically. I'll do that with Teodo, when we have our conversation. But I think like with Purse, I think it's a little bit too much. I would have much rather have seen a more engaging fish if they wanted something that was quote unquote challenging, or even a more slippery fish that's up more often. But that's another conversation for another time. But like I said, I think downtime fish should exist, but they should really come with a reasonable expectation of being able to be caught. Maybe you're not going to be able to get them. Maybe you're not going to be able to get to a window in a week, maybe two, in the worst case. But I think that they should have like a reasonable expectation. And downtime fish usually fall on the spectrum of show up and cast, which is not as engaging, so they just don't feel great. When you miss a window and you're just like, I just have to be there to catch the fish, and you can't be there, then you have nothing else to work towards. It just kind of feels like you're just checking off a box. And that is not an amazing feeling. So, all that said, I don't know where I stand with Purse's current conditions. I think that if Purse's conditions don't change, I'm accepting of that, but I would be a little disappointed because I think that if they wanted to do something new, something they've never done before, there are a lot more interesting, engaging things they could have done for Purse of Riches that I would have preferred to have seen. But this is assuming it's not actually a bug. This is assuming that they stick around. I don't know if it's going to be a bug. I honestly don't think it's going to be a bug, but I've been wrong before. So this story isn't really over yet. And when it's done, I will definitely share the conclusion with you all somehow. But that's what's going on with Purse of Riches. Coming up, in the next few weeks, as of recording, I'll link it when it's out in here for those who are watching in the future. Like I said, I will be talking with Teodo Taeyun about all of the patch 7.4 fish, because I think all of 7.4, in my opinion, was one of the most memorable and notable discovery pieces that we have had for fishing in quite some time. The suite of 7.4 fish, I think, are all kind of interesting in their own right. We have a huge gambit of different type of fish, and so I'm very excited to be able to sit down with Teodo and talk about them all individually. But until then, and as always, good luck and happy fishing.